What's up, everybody? Thanks for pressing play today. In today's episode of Nerd Nostalgia, you're going to find Bryan, Irvin, and Trey chatting about 3 movies that we picked from the aughts, from the 2000s. Trey likes to call them the aughts. It is what it is. It's the 2000s. So the 3 movies we picked are going to be Watchmen, we're going to talk about V for Vendetta, and then finally we'll cap off with Constantine. Now, you'll notice that we get a little sidetracked. There's a couple times that we talk about politics and movies and comics, specifically the X-Men. We also will diverge off and talk about a little bit of James Bond action and John Constantine, a couple other random stuff. But for the most part, it's going to be Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and Constantine. All right? Y'all know the drill. Actually, before we say that, there is a spoiler warning. We do spoil the shit out of these movies. Kind of hard not to. I try not to, but it is what it is. All right, y'all know the drill. Before we get started, here's a quick clip for you to enjoy. The Rorschach voice and the Batman Dark Knight voice are pretty much identical. So when you do watch this movie, pay attention to that. It's that darkness voice. Swear to me. You know? I noticed it and I was like, that is oddly familiar. And I was like, oh, duh, that's where that's from. It's from fucking Batman. And I was like, oh, duh, it's a Zack Snyder movie.
Illuminati confirmed. Irvin is Batman.
Confirmed. What's up, y'all? Thanks for joining us today. So in this episode, you probably already heard it in my description, but we're going to go over the 3 movies that we picked. Chris is not with us today, so you're just going to catch the regular crew, the trio, the 3 Musketeers. There's no D'Artagnan in this one. I guess Chris could have been the D'Artagnan. But we're going to talk about the 3 following movies, right? We're going to talk about Watchmen, which was my pick. Bryan's pick was...
V for Vendetta.
There he is. And, of course, Trey's pick was Constantine, his absolute favorite movie. So, that said, let's jump into it. Who do you think should go first?
I think Watchmen should go first because it's probably... I think that's the first graphic novel of this batch, right? Who watches The Watchmen?
Who watches The Watchmen? My man. Okay, Trey, you good with that? Or do you want old Constantine to go first?
No, y'all go for it.
Okay.
Best for last.
Okay, so one thing, I'm super excited that we're obviously having this conversation, but for you 2 motherfuckers being the biggest Marvel fanboys, we're doing an all DC episode. Fuck you, suck my dick. Let's do this, bitch. So, that being said, let's jump into some Watchmen. Just like you mentioned before, who watches The Watchmen? I picked this movie for 2 reasons. Obviously, whenever we were going through the aughts, as Trey likes to call it, the greatest movie during that time frame is going to be The Dark Knight. I don't think anybody can argue against that. That is obviously the movie that's probably the best movie ever made, including even against my current favorite, which I would say is Endgame. Endgame was super awesome for a lot of moments, mainly I think Captain America's moment. But anyways, I picked Watchmen because I always thought that it was ahead of its time. And I had actually never read the graphic novel up until recent. And so my brother-in-law, shout out Quad.
What did you think? Because I've never read it either. What did you think about the graphic novel?
So if you saw the movie first, then you're going to be skewed because the movie is 95% identical to the graphic novel. And the graphic novel is absolutely awesome. I thought that the movie was awesome. And so there's really only one change to it, and that's one of the points I'll get into here in a little bit. But that was the main reason that I picked that movie. It was kind of ahead of its time, right? A little bit darker. It was definitely that Zack Snyder feel. I'm actually super curious. They just announced that Justice League is going to end up getting the Snyder Cut. I don't know if y'all saw that. It's going to come out on HBO Max in 2021. That's officially confirmed.
I knew you had to squeeze that in there somehow. You just had to squeeze it in there.
Absolutely.
This is the DC episode.
DC episode, motherfuckers.
Snyder cut.
Hey, but low-key, not so much what it's like or not like compared to the movie, but for the audience that hasn't seen or read The Watchmen before, what is the sort of the basic premise of it? What's it about?
The graphic novel or the movie, or I guess it doesn't really matter. It's basically a different world than ours, a slightly different American history. So it starts you off in I think the 80s, 1980s. Boom, there it is. You have essentially what is a society that's full of superheroes. It's something that's a regular thing. Like they even intertwine within within the government, as you come to find out, like the comedian does in Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is basically, if you can believe it, an OP version of Superman. Essentially, whenever Superman goes up into the sun and becomes like Superman 1 million prime, some fucking bullshit, I don't remember what it is, but he basically becomes omnipotent. I think he spends like 10,000 years in the sun. He just gains like all these powers. That's essentially what Dr. Manhattan is all the time. And funny enough, I'm actually reading Doomsday Clock right now, which is kind of like a sequel to the Watchmen novel or graphic novel, but not. And so it basically is combining the Justice League and Watchmen. So far, it's pretty good. I'm on the third comic, and it's super good. So I'm a big fan of crossover, so I'm really enjoying it. Back to the Watchmen, it's basically superheroes exist in this society, and it begins with kind of a mystery, right? You find out that the comedian, which is one of the superheroes, an older superhero, is murdered. And so it basically follows the path of my favorite character from Watchmen, Rorschach. He's essentially like almost a deranged Batman, and he has a Rorschach mask. And so it follows his kind of paranoia, and you see him kind of unwinding. And at the end of it, you just get blown away about who the bad guy is. But I think what I like the most about it is that these aren't your typical Batman, Superman, these like just godly figures that are untouchable. They have a very real human quality to them. And if you've ever actually seen The Boys on Amazon Prime, I want to say they're also a comic book. Don't quote me on that, but it's got that they're flawed, right? That they're not just these Greek immortal gods. They've got human qualities to them too. So I think that's one of my favorite parts about it. And so when I watched The Watchmen, again, who watches The Watchmen? I watch The Watchmen. That's a corny joke, but whatever. So when I watched...
That is correct.
So when I watched it, let me start off with the cast, man. It's got some great cast. Jackie Earl Haley, that's Rorschach. He played a phenomenal Rorschach, almost identical to the graphic novel. One of my other favorite characters is going to be Jeffrey Dean Morgan. While a smaller role, he does play a pivotal role in it. Again, he is the comedian. He's the one who gets murdered. Spoiler alert. And it's literally within the first 2 seconds of the movie. So I think not that big of a spoiler, but kind of a spoiler. So it follows Rorschach following his killer's plot and finding out who he is and what the ultimate goal was. Another person that's in there that is just an absolute beauty, playing Sally Jupiter, an older character, is Carla Gugino. She's just beautiful. Dark hair, colored eyes, absolutely gorgeous. Then there's also a young Malin Ackerman. She is a cutie patootie blonde. She's been in things such as White Castle, as Bryan pointed out the last episode. Go ahead, Bryan.
I don't remember pointing that out, but I also, in this exact moment, wanted to point out that was the movie that I remember her being in. So
perfect. Good. I remember her in the Heartbreak Kid. Did y'all ever watch that with what's his name?
Stiller.
Stiller, yeah, Ben Stiller.
Yeah,
oh,
Ben Stiller.
R.I.P. his dad, by the way.
Yeah.
She had alopecia in Happy Thank You More Please, directed by Josh Radnor.
Nice.
The guy from How I Met Your Mother.
Nice. There you go.
So there's 2 movies that she's been in,
Yeah.
plus Watchmen.
Boom. So the cast right there is pretty good. It also has Patrick Wilson as Night Owl, which is kind of essentially a Batman. They really split Batman's character into 2 different parts. The crazy side of Batman, which is essentially Rorschach, and then the tech, super rich, buff dude, and that's Patrick Wilson. That's Night Owl. One of the things that I did not like about the movie versus the graphic novel, in the graphic novel, spoiler alert, right? In the graphic novel, at the end, you find out who the bad guy was, and it's not somebody who you think, but they end up releasing basically a giant squid on society that has psychic powers. And this fucking sounds crazy the more as I'm going further, but it releases it on New York City and it kills like 3 million people or something like that. So the hopes was to unite the entire world that was on the brink of nuclear war. It was basically US and Russia, right? On the brink of nuclear war. This unites it. It's like, oh, we have a common enemy. Let's all be one, right? Well, in the movie, they switched and pivoted and kept it as just completely it being nuclear war. So instead, they essentially make it look like Dr. Manhattan wiped out all these cities and killed just millions of people and was like, hey, if you don't get better, then I'm going to come after you and finish the job type deal. Even though it wasn't him, it was somebody else because he was in Mars or something like that. It also reminded me of, is it in The Dark Knight that, yeah, it is in The Dark Knight where after he beats the Joker, they needed Harvey Dent to be the martyr, the symbol. And so he's like, I'll take it, you know. Well, how does the line go? He's the...
I don't know. The ending of The Dark Knight was the worst part of that movie. Let me stop you right here.
Sure.
What I've always wanted to know is, I'm not a huge Watchmen fan of either the books or the movie because I never really read graphic novel.
Dude,
and I didn't
so good.
see the movie until, and again, I understand that, but the criticism's always been that, they changed the ending. It was Dr. Manhattan as the fake bad guy rather than the space squid. Why is it better that the threat is an extra dimensional alien in the graphic novel than an omnipotent blue penis exposing god, which is what they made the bad guy out to be in the movie? Why is the graphic novel ending so much better than the movie ending? Or do you have an opinion on that?
I really wasn't bothered by it. I'm a source material guy. Like, they literally, for the movies, they literally set you up for the fucking slam dunk. I don't understand why sometimes, especially DC, has to go and be like, oh, we're gonna do something different. Now, I get like, okay, you can't really show this or it's hard to convey this, but I feel like that wouldn't be that difficult to convey. And so, and actually, they did a great job in Watchmen, the HBO show. That is essentially a continuation of the graphic novel. They went with it was a giant, alien squid that came down and blah, 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 and it plays a whole part in the Watchmen show.
Can we just start referring to the squid as Dr. Zoidberg?
That's pretty good.
Okay, Irvin, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you like the movie more, or did you like the HBO series more?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Now, they're two completely different things, though.
Those are the only kinds of questions that I ask.
If that were only the truth. They're two different things. I like them separately. I really do like the movie. I still think it's a really good movie, and it's held up there. And it still even carries over into this time. It's a slow movie, so if you're looking for a Dark Knight, fucking everything blowing up, and Michael Bay as Bryan's favorite director, if you're looking for that type of movie, you're not going to get that. This is a mystery. He's following the clues. There's some funny moments into it. There's some gory moments into it. There's some darkness, some realism. Kind of the same. It's that Zack Snyder feel, right? It's that same ambiance that you get from Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, that realism that you get into this same world. And one of the things that I noticed was in 2009, that's when this movie debuted. After Batman Begins, the Rorschach voice and the Batman Dark Knight voice are pretty much identical. So when you do watch this movie, pay attention to that. It's that darkness voice. Swear to me, I noticed it and I was like, that is oddly familiar. And I was like, oh, duh, that's where that's from. It's from fucking Batman. And I was like, oh, duh, it's a Zack Snyder movie.
Illuminati confirmed. Irvin is Batman.
Confirmed. Yeah, I still think it's a great movie. It's still rated pretty high on IMDb. You got a 7.6 rating, which isn't too bad considering that people do shit on it. I think it didn't do as good as it should have, but, say la vie. I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. Had it come out maybe 3 to 4 years ago or even up to date now, I think it still would have crushed it in the box office there, guys.
A 7.6 on IMDb is not a bad rating, but the only rating that I care about
is the Nerd Nostalgia.
The only rating that anyone should care about is how many Ewoks is this movie worth?
Nerd nostalgia, Ewoks.
You remember, it's from 1 to 9. There's no such thing as 10 Ewoks, because then you get to an AT-AT.
AT-AT. Okay, fair enough. So
I'm glad you say AT-AT instead of at, which only the worst, most hateful people in the world say.
Well, yeah.
Remember, if it's below 3, it's actually Jar Jars. And so 1 to 3 Jar Jars, and then 4 to 9 Ewoks. So
and then it's an AT-AT.
Someone, not me, someone needs to come up with a Ewok to stars to Jar Jar exchange rate. So that way we can always know on a day-to-day basis how many Ewoks or stars or Jar Jars is your movie worth. Birdemic, clearly a 2 Jar Jar movie. The Room, not Room, starring Brie Larson, but The Room, obviously a 7 Ewok movie.
Never seen it, so I can't. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But okay, yeah. Also, by him saying, someone, not me, he's basically saying, "Hey, Irvin, why don't you get on that, buddy?" So cool. One more for the project book there. How many Ewoks do I give this? I would give it 8 Ewoks. It's
I was right there. I was like 7 or 8 Ewoks.
Yeah, I do the 0.5.
It's almost
so I'm like
perfect Ewok movie.
I'm like, it's really good. I like it. I really enjoy it. Even as like I'm not a fan of slow paced movies, I enjoy this movie. I really do. It could use a little bit more boobs in there from old girl. What's her name?
Malin.
Yeah. Or hell, I would have taken Carla's too. But aside from that, I mean, it's a solid movie. It's a good plot. Follows the graphic novel, again, almost to the T. I bought the extended cut. I forgot what it's called. It's something specific. It's like, I don't know, extended director's cut or some bullshit like that. But it gives you, in the graphic novel, there is a comic, Tales of the Black Freighter. And in the movie, the extended cut version, it's like an extra 20 minutes, and it shows you that. And it's Gerard Butler's voice, and it's the tales of this pirate and like what he does and blah, blah, blah. And so it's a comic within a comic. They put that in this movie, and so I think I appreciated it that much more. So I'll rate that movie a solid 8 Ewoks out of 9.
That's a lot of fucking Ewoks.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Lieutenant Diane.
Trey, do you got any thoughts on Watchmen, or have you ever watched it or read it? Or
I have not read it, but I have seen the movie. And I have seen the tiniest bit of the series, and I've actually watched it a couple of times over the course of years. But I would say at least twice, maybe 3 times, with probably not paying attention to the third time I watched it. But yeah, I mean, it I don't want to say it borrows, but it pulls from a lot of different areas, like Irvin was explaining, and you can definitely see the kind of ode to the Batmans, and even a little bit to the Wonder Woman kind of ideas. And it was a little bit like the stuff that's based in the past, so like in the 40s and 50s, that post World War II surge of superheroes that were around, where they're kind of showing them all in like the photographs, and they just kind of dwindle over time. So it kind of feels like The Incredibles to me. Like in that, I mean, obviously a lot darker of a version of The Incredibles, but to where they're a dying breed, right? This is the kind of the last couple of hurrahs of these superheroes, and that's it's a cool topic. Like, it's been done several times, obviously. I mean, at least twice. You've got Watchmen, and then you've got The Incredibles, and then there's probably a couple more. So if you can think of any, let me know. But that's kind of an interesting stance, kind of an interesting topic to broach for a story, and I think it does a really good job of that. It's dark enough. It's well written, and it's filmed cool. Like, it's very, what is it, like, it's not neo-noir, but it's like it's just kind of noir, whatever. It's the dark tones.
The style is Snyder noir.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Snyder noir. Yeah, I like that.
And so that, I mean, and that's cool, and it fits. It fits the story. It fits the city that it's set in. And the era and everything like that. And so I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not going to get 8 Ewoks, but I'd give it 7 Ewoks for sure.
There you go. One thing that I liked that it did, a couple things that I noted. I forgot that I had taken down some notes. I covered pretty much everything that I would have gone through, but They do a really good job, and this is for you, Brian, since and any other fans that have never watched it before. They do a great job of Easter eggs throughout the movie, indicating who actually killed the comedian. And once you see it, you're like, oh shit, I should have known that. And so it's really good. Even right off the gate, they do it. And then another thing that they do is the like famous pieces. Like the one that stood out to me was I don't know if you remember in history class seeing the image of that sailor kissing the girl. Well, since this is a society of superheroes that have, or actually it started off as heroes, and then with the birth of Dr. Manhattan, it evolved into superheroes. And so there's an image of one of the former, I forgot, super heroines, I guess, kissing the girl instead of the sailor kissing the girl. And so that's the famous picture. And so I was like, that's pretty fucking cool that they did that and like switched, our world and combined it and kind of switched it up a little bit. And then another thing they did really great, which I think this is a Snyder thing, is the music, playing the music at fucked up scenes. They did just a really good job. Like, you're like, why are you playing this song? You're like, okay. But I really enjoyed that as well.
So I've never seen, no, I've never read the graphic novel, but I have seen the Snyder cut or whatever. It's the one that actually had the Black Freighter graphic novelization or whatever in the movie. So it was like 7 hours long. It was like the longest movie I've ever seen.
It was pretty long, yeah.
You take a graphic novel like The Watchmen, or I guess it's just Watchmen, that had something to say, and I couldn't tell you what exactly it was. I know it had to do with authoritarian regimes and Reaganism and the threat of nuclear holocaust. And then you adapt it, and this may be just more of a critique on Zack Snyder as a director. I think Zack Snyder is a phenomenal cinematographer. I think that it's like taking a really pretty girl who's just dumb as shit. If you just muted every Zack Snyder movie and just watched it, you would have a great time. But if you take the mute off, you hear the stuff that gets said, and you're like, what? And the reason is that Zack Snyder has a great attention to beautiful spectacle and visuals, and you see that in every one of his movies, but he doesn't have a lot to say. And so why are we in 2000? You said it came out in 2009. Why are we in 2009 talking about the threat of nuclear Armageddon? It's not. I mean, that was not the pressing dilemma on everyone's mind at the time. The threat becomes Dr. Manhattan as this omnipotent god. Maybe that's an allegory for the United States' role in the world. I don't know. But you take something that has so much to say, so much, I don't want to say philosophical because that sounds nerdy, but you've got something that has such a strong message. And again, I'm about to go into V for Vendetta, which that has as much problems as the Watchmen adaptation.
No, get in there. Well, and also you have to consider that they're both Alan Moore, that he fucking has touched both those pieces. He's touched them like...
Yeah, and again, he's just a radical guy. And again, I've never read V for Vendetta, but I've listened to the What's the Difference on both of these adaptations, and they essentially say Alan Moore had a very radical, a very specific vision, and the Wachowskis and Zack Snyder basically gave us the cookie cutter Walmart great value. What's the HEB version?
Hill Country Fair.
Hill Country Fair version of those stories, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. But
the only thing I'll say like against that, like where you're going into where you're saying like, okay, why Zack Snyder why was this the focus or whatever, the big threat, is that it was really close to the source material that was published in 1986 and 87, and that we're in the heart of the Cold War, so it's like that was what was pressing then, and that's what Alan Moore wrote. And so to hold to that, I mean, and it wasn't like he said, okay, yeah, we're we're going to make this where they're superheroes from the 80s and we're going to be publishing this or we're going to be filming this in 2009, so we're going to be no, they flash back to the 40s and they set everything in the 80s, which it's fine. Like, I mean, you're just sticking to source material, and that's fair. Like, you just hold to what's the big bad of the era, and that's how you set that stage.
But you know, you guys have heard me bitch about this regarding the Star Wars sequels and prequels and all that, and it's that when we make sequels, when we make adaptations, we do a shitty job of it because we say, okay, we're gonna do a prequel to Star Wars. Let's just remember everything we did good in Star Wars, or we do a sequel to Star Wars, and we're just gonna jerk ourselves off thinking about how cool Star Wars was. When the reason why Star Wars was cool was because of all the cool stuff that went into it to make it powerful. And so you take something like Watchmen, which is about Cold War politics, it's about Cold War concerns, and you bring it into a post 9/11 world where there's no more Soviet Union and where China's not really ascendant yet. You've got different shit to worry about. And so don't bring in modern concerns and apply it to a Cold War world. Say, hey, look, what are we dealing with? What are we dealing with in 2009? We're dealing with the threat of Al-Qaeda. We're dealing with this like fear of religious-based terrorism. And if that's the thing that superheroes are having to fight, what would Alan Moore, what would the Watchmen have to say about this today? And that's why in some ways I think that the HBO series was a better adaptation, because they said, okay, let's fast forward from Alan Moore's Watchmen universe into 2019. We're still dealing with racial inequality. We're still dealing with all this bullshit that we thought would be cured 3 decades ago, and it's not. What does that look like with a world of superheroes, a world of weirdo heroes? It looks like this. That's kind of what I wish Zack Snyder could do. And so instead of Zack Snyder saying, let's do Superman but broody, if he did, well, what does a god look like in 2013? What does someone who can literally fly and is bulletproof, what does that look like in 2013? I don't know. I see it as a missed opportunity. I see that we feel constrained by the source material, but also beholden to it. And that's I think the worst part of our adaptations. That's my 2 cents.
Or it can be the worst part. Like, I mean, there's certain things that I guess, because okay, let me try and phrase this. If you didn't even give the source material a nod, meaning that the ideas behind that, you know, created these characters and created these situations and everything in the source material was like the big movements of the day, and you just kind of ignored those and you just told like more of a localized story, then you kind of lose some of that grandeur that made that source material great in the first place. That message that, like, you know, like X-Men was started as kind of the tolerance stuff, right? You know, the racism and the sexism and the, like, that was the idea behind it, and why Stan Lee and those guys started writing that stuff back in the, you know, what was it, the 70s or 80s? I guess it was the 80s. And that's why they put together this team. And if you just take that away and try and modernize it, even though that's still in existence today, and you take it and you modernize it, then you lose some of that grandeur, some of those driving elements in the story. So while updating it may be a great idea, it's just sometimes it's ignored, and that's a bad thing.
Okay, so no, this is actually really interesting, and let's fuck the rest of the podcast idea. I think this is really interesting because take X-Men for example. The basis of Xavier and Magneto were, oh my gosh, we're turning this from a DC episode into a Marvel episode. This is amazing. So
it just flipped.
We flipped the script. Disney just bought out DC, guys. That's what happened tonight.
Hey, motherfuckers, I just need y'all to remember who the actual producer is. Y'all think this is switched over to X-Men? And stop.
Okay, but
You go
38
you gonna
minutes
learn
early.
today.
Yeah, you gonna learn today, little
okay,
boy.
but for real, think about it. Xavier was Martin Luther King Jr. and Magneto is Malcolm X. And so when X-Men originated, those were the leaders of the time of that political that movement of inequality. And so it was a way of expressing a timely concern. Those leaders are gone, and we have had time to mourn them, and we've had time to memorialize them. We've had time to make biopics about them. So if you want to make a 2001 X-Men, you can absolutely do a period piece about what it's like to have Professor Xavier in the 1960s. And hilariously, we did that in the fourth or fifth X-Men prequel.
Right.
But wouldn't it just be amazing to do, if you could go back in time and do a 2001 X-Men movie? And again, here's what Bryan Singer did really well in that movie was he took the racial element and said, okay, that was a big concern in the 1960s. Now what we're going to do, when X-Men was originally conspired or built, and said, okay, what's one of the pressing social issues now? Well, it's kind of the gay rights issue. And so that was pervasive throughout the X-Men movies. So wouldn't it have been cool if instead of basing this movie that was very thinly veiled an allegory about gay rights and coming out of the closet of your mutant powers, instead say, well, who are the modern 2001 gay rights leaders? Who are the people who are talking about this? What does the conversation now look like? And to really, and you can still have Professor Xavier as a historical figure. You can still have Magneto, because, I mean, goddamn, Magneto's dead by this point. Xavier are dead by this point because they've either been assassinated or they've just gotten too old to be effective. That's what I wish we could do with our adaptations is, instead of doing the prequel trilogy, do what Blade Runner 2049 did, which was here's our past and here's what it looks like 30 years later in this universe. Here's what it looks like 40 years later in this universe. Here's what X-Men looks like after 50, 60 years of failed attempts to honor what Professor Xavier, what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to do. That would be a cool adaptation to me.
So you're thinking like, no Bruce Wayne. It's got to be Terry McGinnis or someone completely different. The Joker. I mean, so basically what they did with like Batman Beyond, where you have this is the universe, and Bruce Wayne is an old man, and the Joker is dead, and everybody else is in prison, and these are the things that have happened, and this is the shitty stuff that happened, and now this is the new class taking over, right? So it's true to the source material in the fact that there is still a Batman, it is still Gotham City. These things did happen and these things did exist, but now they are gone and we have moved on from there. And maybe there's a throwback of some of those characters, such as a Bruce Wayne as an old man.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because think about it. The Bruce Timm adaptation is perfect because the animated series, the original, the 1990s version, was all about this kind of timeless Art Deco Batman, and then the Batman Beyond was, here's what Batman looks in the future, in the time that Terry McGinnis comes around. And I'm thinking that's really cool, because the shit that we were worried about in the 1990s was the massive homicide rate in New York City and all the Chicago murder rates and all that kind of stuff. That's obviously still a huge concern, but it's not the front of the consciousness the way that it was back then. You think about the Ninja Turtles movies, and we were concerned about urban youths turning to drugs and pop music and shit like that, and then wanting to go out and steal stereos and stab people in the dark. We don't think about that anymore, so we need superheroes that reflect that, and we still keep going back to, and then Batman beat up the guy wearing like gang affiliated clothing, and like he's still fighting villains from Michael Jackson movies.
Right. So okay. So
Nolan
where does
did?
where does that
Nolan did
put?
change it up a little bit and did the whole organized crime thing, but that's fine.
Right, or terrorist acts, right? But so where does that put V for Vendetta? Because it's dystopian. It's got some serious, overlaying themes about, and actually may even make more sense today because of the crisis and things that we're going through now, where rights are being somewhat infringed upon. You know, mandated stay-at-home orders and requirements for face masks and things like that, like that slippery slope that where they ended up, because their whole thing was, and this was something that I remembered from that movie, which I love, was that, like, you know, it's set in England, but they talk about America as a wasteland and China as a wasteland because of whatever happened, nuclear war or chemical warfare or whatever, that they just, like, they gloss over it in the movie for sure, just about, hey, this is what happens when you don't stand in line and do what you're supposed to be doing, and then that's why you got somebody coming and putting a black bag over your head and ripping you out. Like, because it's dystopian, and because I think that fear is inherent in all societies, for a totalitarian regime to come in and take over and basically eliminate your rights as a free people, like, that kind of stands the test of time, in my opinion. And since it is set in a dystopian kind of alternate timeline, alternate universe, right? This is what's happened. This is what the world has become. It sticks to the source material, of course, but it does it well, and it's still relevant even today. I mean, would you agree with that?
See, so having never read V for Vendetta and only having seen the movie, my understanding, again, this is my general summary. Spoiler warning. Whatever our phrase is for that. The original is that, and again, it more or less tracks with the movie, is that the British government manufactures a biological crisis and then uses that biological crisis to consolidate power and basically start a super powerful fascist regime. V, the protagonist, is just a fucking anarchist and is skeptical of all government and thinks that all politicians should be brought down and humbled. And the movie takes that general premise and makes it a specific indictment of the Bush administration, of the Patriot Act, of surveillance on folks, and the homophobia of the new conservatives and all that crap. So is that a good adaptation? In some ways, yeah, because V for Vendetta took the source material, which is all government is bad. Again, it's basically a graphic version of Animal Farm. Animal Farm was an indictment of Stalinism, but it was also basically an indictment of all government, and that all government tends towards corruption and tends towards authoritarianism. And you took that basic premise and you said, okay, what does that look like today? It looks like Bush Patriot Act nonsense. I like it. I think it's great because it's got Hugo Weaving. It's got one of the best voices on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Mr.
Easily.
Anderson, Mr. Frodo. It's got that going for it. It's got a really compelling set of villains and a lot of good revenge that comes out of that movie. And it is kind of silly in a lot of ways. Like, how did he amass all of this wealth? How did he get all of this stuff? Where is all of his skin? A lot of questions are unanswered, but it's also kind of just a beautiful fairy tale. So I love the movie. I love V for Vendetta because it's a good, timely adaptation. You may watch V for Vendetta in 2030 and 2020 and say, this doesn't really apply. We've got new shit to worry about. But for a 2006, I want to say, adaptation, it was pretty good because it took the original idea and it said, what does that look like during the Bush administration? What does that look like with the Bush-Blair mashup? I like it. I think it's worth a watch. I think it's a good idea. It's good of what adaptations could be, and I think it's one of the last great Wachowski movies. Obviously, I still like Cloud Atlas. Everything else, guys,
kind of take it.
Quick little note on that. Obviously, another Alan Moore story. He did not want any credit with this movie because they had botched a couple of his other works, like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which we've discussed before. I didn't know was actually a comic. I don't know if y'all knew that, but I didn't know it was a comic. I thought they were just borrowing from literature, which obviously they are. He said he refused to watch the movie because they fucked up some of his other works and was like, I don't even want to be paid royalties on this. So I'm like, man, what a dick. Kind of a shitty thing to do and say, you know?
I mean, how many of his properties have been made into movies though? So he's not hurting. So he can take that artistic high road and tell him to fucking get out of here.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. If you made an artistic work, wouldn't you rather than have someone, and you'll take their paycheck obviously, wouldn't you rather someone take your work and say, let me do a facelift on this. Let me make her tits a little bigger. Let me cut out some of that cellulite in the image and then do something else with it. Wouldn't you just want to talk to that person that wants to take your art and change it and just say, go make your own fucking story. Go make your own Flash Gordon. Fair.
I mean, fair. But again, at the end of the day, it's been
Hollywood, baby.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
sold the rights were gone. He sold them. He said, "You go make this movie."
Yeah.
And then it became whatever it was. But at the same time, I'm sympathetic to him being dismissive of it because it's like, it's not my story anymore. It's the Wachowski story, and I don't care to watch that story.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but yeah,
there's no way
it's one
he
of those things
hasn't
that.
Watched it.
But they get so pressured into it. It's like.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing you read a book and you're like, I wonder when the movie's coming out, because like nothing original comes not nothing, but not many things
not
original
often,
come from directly from movies.
And usually when
Days of Future was an original story.
Shit.
The Matrix was an original story.
I mean, yeah, there is, but what I'm saying is that a knee-jerk reaction is like, okay, how would this look in moving picture as I'm reading like a novel series or as I'm reading a comic book or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of stories that I would be like, yeah, that would be super dope, and like I can think of 1,000 different ways that it can be done, and then that 1,001 way is how it's done, and it's awful. So, Dark Tower,
which you still haven't seen
yet.
Yeah,
I was like, how could you criticize it?
Won't do it. I will criticize it till the end of time. Don't have to see it. Don't want it. Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. Okay,
isn't time a flat circle?
I need to get a drinky boo.
Actually, no. We need his Ewok score.
Oh, V for Vendetta. I would give V for Vendetta today in 2020 on day 197 under the dome. I'm just kidding. This is like, shit, when did we go under the dome?
I went under the dome March 12th.
So we're now day
60? 68.
68. We're day 68 under the dome. I'd give V for Vendetta probably 7.5 Ewoks.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty good. 7.5 Ewoks.
It's not a perfect movie.
Yeah.
But it's a good movie. I would watch it. I have watched it again. I would watch it again. I would encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it.
Yeah.
If only because you
I need
get
to
to
rewatch
hear
it.
Hugo Weaving say awesome shit all the time.
Yeah. I need to rewatch
Ding,
it. I also
ding,
have
ding,
the
ding.
graphic novel. Yeah.
So the last one that I watched was Constantine. And so from an overall perspective, I love the property. I love the franchise, or the property, I guess is what it would be. And have for a really long time. And that being said, there are over 300 issues in the original series, and they just restarted the series again in November of 2019, and it's still ongoing.
Hey Trey, what did your two very best friends on this podcast get you for your birthday? Why don't you go ahead and tell
No, not two very best friends in the podcast.
Two very best friends in life.
Period.
Fair. Touche, brother.
Except
actually-
for Anne and Chris and his two beautiful children, his brother. Except for all those people, fuck them.
My friends got me a graded copy of Hellblazer #1 from January of 1988, and it is in very, very good condition, and it's in the nice, pretty plastic holder and everything. It's dope. It's really, really, really cool, and it's a cool cover anyway, like for a first of a series. It's very 80s, like cool cover. Anyway,
Don't worry, guys. We'll put it. We'll put it up on our social media. Make sure that you follow us on nerd.nostalgia on Instagram. That's where you'll see it. And then we'll also be on Nerd Nostalgia Podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, Nerd Nostalgia all together on TikTok. Continue, Trey.
TikTok.
By the way, quick interruption. That's what we got Trey. Trey got me, for my birthday, this amazing, it's truly the most thoughtful gift I've ever gotten. It's a mug full of Shakespearean insults. I love it. It's got all the best insults. Not so much brain as earwax. Beautiful, beautiful. And then the way I honored that gift was I immediately fucking shattered it.
Yep.
Like a make asshole.
just found
Like
that.
24 hours later. It was pathetic.
Hilarious.
But it's going to
Yeah.
get fixed. And I'm going to drink coffee out of it.
Oh yeah, these guys
Every
have
day.
birthdays really close by together. We should have led with that, guys.
Yeah.
I
Irvin
also
got me
got
for my birthday nothing.
a ZJ. He says it's nothing.
What's a
but
ZJ?
if you don't know what it is, you can't afford it.
Can't afford it.
It's $15.
It's the friend rate.
It is the friend rate.
Um,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt
so,
there.
So anyway,
Super awesome
back
gift.
to it.
Yep.
1988 to 2013, and then restarted again in 19. So 300 in the original series, original run, I should say, and so we'll say probably around 200 something whenever Constantine the movie came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of material, and is one of the problems that kind of befalls a lot of movies. Instead of going the television show route, which they did try after this, and it didn't last very long, but they tried to pack a whole hell of a lot into one, 180-minute, whatever it was, movie.
Do you remember who you watched Constantine with in the theaters?
I do, and I remember the theater, the dollar cinema, and I don't think I was old enough to be able to get in, because I think I was maybe 16 or 17. Yeah, we went
to be young again.
to be young again and walk in and your feet stick to the floor because they haven't cleaned it since the 1980s.
That's every good movie theater.
One speaker warbles the whole time. There's lines running through the screen. Anyway, but yeah, it was with you, and I can't remember who all else was there.
I think Jake was with us.
Maybe
and
Jake.
Maybe Corey.
I don't know about Corey. I don't think Corey. Maybe Nathan.
It was 06 though, so what fourth? I think there was 4 people. It was you, you, me, Jake, and I thought there was a fourth. Maybe it was just the three of us.
I'm not sure. But anyway, I do remember going to watch it and enjoyed it then and enjoyed it the rewatch again. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things that they did different. Keanu Reeves was cast as John Constantine, which is not a bad casting because I like Keanu Reeves a lot. However, John Constantine for the source material is blonde and is British and wears a brown trench coat and not all black like Keanu does in the movie. It's set in LA versus, which Constantine's kind of set everywhere, so that's not really anything, but he lives in LA, which is not, that's not the case. That's not true to the source material where he's from London. But
the Arrowverse Constantine references John, or I was about to call him John Wick Constantine, but basically that's correct.
But basically that's right. Yeah.
There's
a guy with dark hair.
Yeah.
There's a guy with dark hair lives in L.A. Calls himself John Constantine.
Yep.
In this universe, yeah. No, and that I did know that. Like I'm not big into Arrow, but I did know that there was a reference made in the multiverse over there, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And pretty kind of a cool spin.
Yeah, you got to give it to people who to those nerds that were writing that. Granted, I think they did a shitty job for that crossover, but the fact that they gave that nod, I was like, respect, dog, respect. They also did the greatest crossover ever, and did Grant Gustin's The Flash with Ezra Miller's The Flash from Justice League.
I think I've seen that scene.
Oh,
yeah.
When I saw that, I didn't know that it was happening. It blew my fucking mind. I was like, fuck, yes. Yes. But yeah, continue.
And so, but it has a, like I said, it has a great cast. You've got Keanu Reeves as John Constantine, and then you've got Rachel Weisz, who was all over the place in the
two roles she played in that movie.
That's very true. She played a set of twins.
We've actually referenced Rachel Weisz's boobies before, so all of our fans should be very familiar.
She was coming off of like The Mummy and all that good stuff. So she was a hot commodity at that time, and I don't think I've seen her a whole lot since then. Or at least in like stuff that I watch. I mean, she may be in some chick flicks or something, but
Okay, two weird kind of esoteric movies with Rachel Weisz. Have y'all seen The Lobster?
no.
Red Lobster?
Just the
Zoidberg.
Lobster.
Zoidberg.
It's got Colin Farrell and Rachel Weisz and some other fucking people. It's got the Academy Award winner that I remember from Peep Show, but I can't remember her name. Anyway, go watch that movie. It's amazing. Got Rachel Weisz. The other one is not as good a movie. It's called The Fountain. Have y'all seen that?
Nein, Fräulein.
No? Trey?
I don't think so. The Fountain? No.
Okay. Y'all may have heard of it. The Fountain came out in like 2009, 10-ish. Who cares? It stars Hugh Jackman, Rachel Weisz, and that's it, I think. And it's about... Okay, let me think about this. There's the space tree. There's the conquistador. There's the modern times. I think there's a fourth timeline. It's about 4 timelines of Hugh Jackman being in love with and trying to save Rachel Weisz from something, and fundamentally failing each time. And it seems like it sounds like a really cool movie, right? It's not very good.
Fun fact, she's also going to be a Black Widow.
Is she going to be in Black Widow?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yep.
Black Widow, the first female Marvel superhero movie that's not starring Brie Larson, coming out in February of 2027.
God,
Right.
I hate Brie Larson.
Thanks, Rona.
Thanks, Rona. So yeah, Rachel Weisz, again, very attractive and was doing a whole lot of stuff at that time. And then you had young Shia LaBeouf before he went batshit crazy as Chaz. And he played the same character that he played in pretty much every movie until he went crazy. And that's all you need to know about that. Just frantic, like, man, I hate, come on, I gotta get in here and I gotta do this and I just want to
Sam Witwicky in Constantine.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Do I get credit for remembering his name from the Transformers-averse?
You get you lose points.
I believe that's called the Bayiverse.
Do I lose points to House Hufflepuff?
And then you had Tilda Swinton, who played a angel. And we'll just leave it at that. And I thought that that was a really good casting. Because, I mean, you think about, like, the thing that comes to mind with Tilda Swinton now is going to be, what is it, the one, what is the one from Doctor Strange? The ancient one?
Ancient one.
Yeah, ancient one. And so that's what comes to mind now, is the ancient one. And so, like, bald and everything like that, and you kind of wonder, is the ancient one male or female, and nobody knows and nobody really cares, and so that's kind of the same character, with a little more thrown in there for her character in Constantine. And then you had what's his name, Peter Stormare as
Stomier. I don't know.
He is the Swedish actor, and he's been in like freaking everything. Fargo, Constantine. He was in John Wick. He was in Bad Boys. He plays like the crazy Russian.
Was he the
movie.
dad? Was he the dad in John Wick?
He was Chapter 2. John Wick Chapter 2.
Oh.
And then, like, you look at his IMDb, it's got like 45 entries. Like, he's done a ton of movies. But he played Lucifer in Constantine, and it is
that guy, yeah.
Yes, it is the one of my favorite adaptations of Lucifer ever, and probably will ever be. As many things that were wrong with the Constantine movie, that was one thing that they hit out of the park, was his portrayal of Lucifer. Now, of course, all of the naysayers about Constantine are going to bring up that particular scene that is at the end of the movie, about how he comes back. Spoilers.
It makes perfect sense to me. Like, I don't understand why people harp on it so bad.
Because he cut his wrists, and that's what killed him, and then he made the sacrifice. But then Lucifer puts his hands in his chest and removes the lung cancer, which that wasn't ultimately what killed him. That's what people freak out about. But I'm just like, that it's the visuals of doing that and giving him more. And so my thought is just giving him more time to fuck up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if he just brings him back to life and then he dies the next day of lung cancer, then he's probably still going to go to heaven.
Yeah,
and that's
Trey's had 15 years to anticipate the same complaint I've made for 15 years, which is
yep. I knew it was coming.
He anticipated. It took him 15 years to come up with that defense, but Jesus Christ.
But it's sound. That's exactly what makes sense to me. Like, why wouldn't you believe? Oh, I just took out all the tar out of his lungs, and why wouldn't he just brace over his fucking wrists? Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Right. It's easy.
Yeah. Don't be a stupid.
Because Satan can only remove tar from lungs. He can't fix cut wrists, you idiot. That's not canonical in the universe. Ugh.
Idiot.
Stupid. Do you not even read Hellblazer or Hellraiser or Trazer or the Lando Blaudrizian story? God damn
Oh,
it.
there it is.
Irvin.
There it is.
Smell
I was like, fuck, are we going to go a
roasting
full episode without them bringing it up? Nope.
Never.
There it is. Hey, who played Lucifer again? Was it, oh man, God, what is his name?
Peter Stormare.
No.
Stormare. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think
and I apologize. I really like the actor. I just don't know how to pronounce his name.
Jackie Chan?
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Bruce Jackie Chan Lee. Don Choi.
And I got stuck on, Peter Stormare or whatever his name is, but Papa Midnight in Constantine was played by Jimon Hansu. He's been in a bunch of stuff too. He was one of the more recent things. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the black guy at the beginning that chases down Star-Lord, right?
Oh, yeah. Like that dude. He's a real good actor.
And so he's a great actor, and he does a great job as Papa Midnight. I thought he was really just a cool character, like portrayed really well within the movie. But I was steering away from like bringing him up because I have no idea how to say his name. And so anyway, the consensus seems to be that his first name is pronounced Hyman.
No.
Jaimin, with the D being silent.
Oh, wow.
So it's like Django?
The Django.
The D is silent.
The D is silent.
What a great movie.
So, yeah. Again, great actor, great portrayal. And great movie. I love the movie. I mean, again, I'm a huge fan of the source material. It's one of those things that it doesn't have. It's very localized. The stories are all localized. Yeah, it starts out in the 80s when you're reading the comic books, and it's like, it's got a bunch of yuppies in it, and it's got like, the drug use problem, and it's got, it does touch on those social topics, but it's John Constantine's view of the world, right? So it's not like he's looking at this huge political arc or these big winds of change and everything like that. These are the things that he interacts with in his world, and it happens to be like demons dressed as yuppies, but it's such a classical good versus evil arc that's been around forever, right? Angels versus demons. Mm-hmm. Demons bad, angels good. Now he doesn't necessarily take that approach. He just thinks he's kind of like anything or authoritarian. Just get out of here. Like, I don't want I don't want you to tell me what my destiny is. I don't want any of that stuff. I'm not going to one of these other places because I think they both suck. And so it's his view of the world, but with very classical kind of good versus evil things. And so you can touch on some of the political strife at the time, and so you can you basically would drop him. This is his personality, and you drop his personality into any context, he's going to have an opinion. It's going to influence him, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change anything. And so this is the problem at hand. This is the way that I'm going to handle it, and to everything be damned, which to me kind of is almost like a which they've gotten away from this a little bit, but is like a James Bond. So you can continually update James Bond to fight the Nazis and to fight the Ruskies, and then fight a terrorist organization, and then fight Spectre, and then fight this, and then fight that. And he's going to always stay kind of the same. His personality is always going to shine through regardless of what the threat is at that time. And it's, you think about, From Russia with Love, obviously, you've got KGB with a little bit of Spectre influence and stuff like that, but it's, okay, I'm fighting the KGB. And then you get into more modern stuff, and they just update. Like, It's like Lashif is this guy and he works for a terrorist organization. Who cares what the terrorist organization is? There's always a terrorist organization.
There's
always somebody behind it.
And then it became
The Hand.
Spectre. It's ill-defined.
Right. So that, like, those two characters, again, two of my favorite characters, one from literature and movies and popular culture, and then, from comic books being John Constantine. They're kind of the same in the way, very lone wolf, operate in my own way. This is the way things are going to go. This is how I am. I'm not changing. Fuck you. But one is a secret agent and the other one is a magician.
Trey,
Yep.
you were on a Bond kick for a while. How many of the Bond novels have you gone through?
I don't want to say all of them, but a vast majority. I don't think I have very many left to read. I'll have to look, but a lot. And what was funny, and I think we've had this discussion before, that my favorite James Bond movie is From Russia with Love with Sean Connery. It's my favorite movie, and it was one of my least favorite books.
Really?
It was, yeah. It just, I definitely watched the movie before I read the book.
Did you not like all the build-up for the Bond specific assassin who then was pretty easily dispatched? Because I thought that was
think
kind of
so.
silly.
Yeah. Thrown off a train, right?
Yeah,
If
he
I'm
was
not
the
mistaken.
I guess he was a Smersh assassin.
Smersh. Yeah, Smersh.
Played
Yeah,
by
I
the same
forgot
actor who
Smersh.
played Quint in Jaws. What was his name? What was that actor's name? Shit, I think Red's in his name somewhere. I hate myself.
I hate you too.
No, you don't.
Red Grant.
Wait, what was his name?
I love you.
Red
Grant.
So Trey, most important deep question.
How many Ewoks does Constantine get?
I would say 8 Ewoks.
Out of 9?
Solid. Out of 9?
Mm-hmm.
We're all right there, guys. We're all right there in our ratings. Even Bryan was the
8
lowest,
Ewoks.
which
It could have been 9 if
they had just
It was
dyed
lacking a little
Keanu
something.
Reeves' hair blonde, that would have done it.
and then maybe
had they
maybe
not
8.5.
switched from Dr. Manhattan to Keanu Reeves, I think they'd have been fine.
If
Right.
Keanu Reeves had had a bigger holy water grenade launcher, that was my favorite part of that whole movie, was the
That was
holy
pretty cool.
water grenade launcher. That would have been a 9 Ewoks movie. Done.
Nice.
Or if Shia LaBeouf had been able to take 2 shots on the water tank instead of fitting that big ass cross through one shotgun blast into a water tank.
Or if
Physics don't work.
Or if Shia LaBeouf had
Shia
been
LaBeouf.
played by literally any other actor on the earth.
I mean, yeah, because Chaz was, that was a weird portrayal. Chaz was like an older guy, kind of like the confidant, like friend, in my opinion, like through the comic book series. He was older and more established and like had a background in it, like whereas
This was the opposite of that.
yeah, Shia was just like kind of introduced into it, still driving the cab and everything, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
it was like, oh, I'm learning, and then turn him into an angel, and like, fuck that, stupid.
It's stupid.
It's stupid. Well, awesome, guys. We officially knocked the first part of the segment that Trey has masterminded, the aughts, and going through a movie list of those and finding out which ones are the best from that movie, from that decade.
Oh, okay. Who won between the three of us? Because my vote's for V for Vendetta, because y'all pick shitty movies.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do it this way. You can't vote for yourself, so you can't vote for yours. So you have to vote.
Rather than do your stupid fake tie rules, you YMCA, everyone gets a medal, you millennial shit. Let's do it this way. Let's all vote for the movie that we all can agree is the best movie, which is V for Vendetta. None of y'all's opinions matter. Fuck you. I love you both. It's so good to see you guys. I want to hug y'all in person, but coronavirus and all that bullshit.
What's your vote for not yours?
My vote?
Yeah, for not yours.
It's Watchmen.
Which movie would I rather see again? I'm going to go with Constantine because I thought Rachel Weisz was prettier than Malin Ackerman.
Rachel Weisz.
That's literally the only reason.
And I'm going to go for V for Vendetta because that's a great movie. So what's yours? So we got one for
I'm the
Constantine,
tiebreaker.
You're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, one for Constantine, one for V for Vendetta.
Actually, I think we just have one for V for Vendetta.
And one for Constantine.
Yeah.
I vote neither one of them.
Fuck you, Irvin. You piece of shit.
Leave your vote. Leave your vote in the comments.
That goes to the last alphabetically, which is V for Vendetta.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I was like, I win. Yes, I win. You dumb. Bitch.
The last alphabetically that got voted for, which is not Watchmen, you piece of shit.
Oh,
no one
fuck.
likes Watchmen.
I didn't hear that.
No, he didn't say that. He
Right.
lawyered that
That
in.
was in
Don't
my
worry.
mind
We'll
box.
check the tapes.
You bitches.
We'll check the tape. Dope. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let us know, like Trey said, leave it in the comments what you think is the best one of the three.
And then also give your vote for the list that we went over, the extremely long list that we went over last time. If there was one that we should have chosen instead, let us know.
Aside from The Dark Knight, because obviously that was the best movie.
Yeah, and after you leave your comment that V for Vendetta was the best of the three, go ahead and leave comments as to why Irvin and Trey should be drawn and quartered for having their shitty, terrible picks, because they're horrible people. And Irvin, look at you. You get that smug, stupid smile for someone who likes Watchmen. Ugh. 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 It's okay. It's fine.